On a warm summer night in June of 1991, Dr. Michele St. Romain disappeared without a trace. It's a case you've probably never heard, but here in Birmingham, Alabama, it was quite a mystery, and everyone in Birmingham was talking about it. I was 20 years old when a picture of the missing children's hospital doctor flashed all across the local nightly news. The case would take investigators years to solve. There are 3 Alabama cases that first sparked my interest in true crime. The case of missing Dr. Michele St. Romain is one of them. Sometime after 6:30 p.m. on the evening of June 11, 1991, Dr. Michele St. Romain finishes dinner with her then-boyfriend, Dr. Stanley McRee, a handsome doctor who works at another Birmingham hospital. Michele tells him she's tired and she plans to return home and read before going to bed. Dr. Romain returns to her Valley Avenue apartment and is never seen alive again. Birmingham, Alabama is a bustling city, and on the morning of Wednesday, June 12, 1991, doctors, nurses, secretaries, and supporting staff move briskly along the streets around Children's Hospital. It's 7 a.m., and Dr. Michele St. Romain should be at work to start her shift. But by 8 a.m., she still hasn't reported to work. Throughout the day, calls to her home and pager remain unanswered. Word gets back to Dr. McRee that Michele never showed up. He returns home after 1 p.m. to do a welfare check. When he arrives, the scene is troubling. Dr. Michele St. Romain's front door is ajar, and she isn't inside. Her car is parked out front. Inside her apartment lies her purse, her wallet, her checkbook, and her children's hospital beeper. Her boyfriend calls out to her, but there is no answer. So Dr. McRee contacts the Homewood Police Department and files a missing persons report. When they arrive on the scene, they find nothing out of place. Nothing is disturbed. What was she doing right before she disappeared? There are no pots and pans out of place. There is no bathrobe to indicate she was about to shower. There is nothing that gives police a clue as to what she was doing before she disappeared. Word spreads quickly at Children's Hospital, and before long, news journalists flood Homewood's V Club apartments to cover the case of the missing doctor. Dr. McRee is frantic. He last saw Michele after dinner. She was supposed to be at home resting, reading a book. Now she's missing, and he has to tell Michele's parents. Shocked and worried upon hearing the news, Woody and Anita St. Romain immediately leave their New Orleans home and board a plane bound for Birmingham. Born on November 30th, 1964, Michele St. Romain grew up in Marrero, Louisiana, a suburban neighborhood of New Orleans. She is the only child of Woody and Anita St. Romain. As a child, Michele loved animals and was always passionate about becoming a doctor. Even at a young age, Michele often surprised her dad when she would arrive home with a chameleon or a frog she'd found outside. And by the time she was 14, Michele was already honing in on her medical skills. She even had the chance to examine a real body at a local university lab, and she had no fear. Michele was particularly interested in how the brain functioned. It was then that she realized she was interested in neurology as an area of study, specifically pediatric neurology. In high school, they say she was an exceptional student who later received a scholarship to attend Loyola University, and she later received her doctorate at Louisiana State University. The St. Romains were so proud of her and wanted her to study nearby, but Michele wanted to gain experience in a different state. It was around 1989 that Michele met Dr. McRee, who was also studying to be a doctor. They came to Homewood together and signed a lease at V Club Apartments for a year. Michele lived upstairs. Her boyfriend lived in the apartment downstairs, right beneath her apartment. Meanwhile, detectives try to get more information on where Michele could have gone. Dr. St. Romain wouldn't just vanish. At the time of her disappearance, she had just renewed her lease and was preparing to start her second-year residency at Children's Hospital. Hospital officials say she loved her patients and took her work seriously. Dr. Michele St. Romain's parents arrive in Birmingham and speak with detectives at once. They cannot imagine why Michele would be missing. She knew how much her parents worried. Michele would never disappear without telling her mother. This is a strange disappearance. Missing are her car keys, her apartment key, and a pair of hospital scrubs. Wherever the doctor is, she must still be wearing the scrubs from the night before. Investigators have no solid leads to satisfy her parents, nor the Homewood and Birmingham communities. Residents at Children's Hospital are also alarmed. Is someone out there targeting doctors? At first, investigators are not convinced that this is a case of kidnapping. Despite what everyone says, the 26-year-old woman could have walked away from her life. But Michele's parents are adamant. Their daughter is young, but she is responsible and professional, and she would never worry them this way. Woody St. Romain last spoke with his daughter on his birthday, and Anita remembered seeing her daughter on Mother's Day. The St. Romains plead with the public to help find Michele, to keep her case in the public eye, and to keep helping in any way possible. A $10,000 reward is offered. Residents at Children's Hospital in Birmingham put up another $10,000. Before long, there is a reward of over $30,000 for information about the missing doctor. Billboards are erected with a large photo of Michele. Police hold news conferences asking for anyone with information to come forward. They even contact Robert Stack's Unsolved Mysteries to see if they will feature the case on their TV show. One call comes in, a call that could swing the investigation in another direction. An emotional and frightened woman is on the line, and she gives police information about Michele. Now, detectives don't reveal what the mystery caller said, but they make a plea to the public for her to call back. By now, investigators are on the case, and they have their eye on someone they believe has the answers. Michele's boyfriend, Dr. McRee. It's common for investigators to take a look at the victim's romantic partner first. Dr. McRee was the last person to see Michele alive that night, and his apartment is right underneath hers. Investigators dig deeper by looking into her phone records, showing that Dr. St. Romain was alive from 10 p.m. to 10:20 p.m. A further probe confirms that she spoke to an old friend from New Orleans during that time, so she was alive and well up until then. But what happened after that? The door was left partially open, and there was no sign of a scuffle inside the apartment. Had she stepped outside to get something out of her car, or to take out the trash? Or was she abducted as she left for work the next morning? That scenario is unlikely. The area is too busy on a weekday for her abduction to go unnoticed. Most likely, someone snatched her after the phone call ended that same night. Is it possible her boyfriend, Dr. Stanley McRee, returned to her apartment at some point during the night after the phone call? For a while, detectives believe this is a possibility. But Dr. McRee passes a lie detector test, so their possible prime suspect isn't their guy. After finally clearing Dr. McRee as a suspect, the question is, could Michele have had another lover on the side? Probably not, since her current boyfriend lives just downstairs. Now remember, Michele was tired that night and was most likely still wearing her scrubs when she disappeared. Detectives pondered over other possibilities, but they couldn't come up with an answer. They did receive another strange tip. Days before the pediatric intern's disappearance, a baby vanished from University Hospital's nursery. For 2 hours, the nursing staff frantically looked for the baby. It was Dr. Michele St. Romain who found the missing baby boy in a clothes hamper in the nursery at University Hospital. Now, I know what you're thinking. Dr. St. Romain was a doctor at Children's Hospital in Birmingham. It is my understanding that at the time, the pediatric residents rotated between University Hospital Nursery and Children's Hospital. At the time, Michele's mother thought this could have had something to do with her disappearance. Perhaps the person who took the baby saw her. Though strange, detectives don't find a connection between the baby that went missing and was later found and the missing doctor. Just a stone's throw away is Homewood, Alabama, and a nearby area known as Green Springs. In 1991, many up-and-coming professionals live there. There are several doctors, teachers, lawyers, and nurses who populate the area. But lately, there has been a rash of robberies and attacks upon women at various condos on Valley Avenue. There is also the unsolved case of Toni Maria Lim, a dancer who was found dead in her Homewood apartment a year earlier. Could these cases be connected? Police are looking at a man who admits to being involved in one of the incidents at an apartment complex near the area where Dr. St. Romain was abducted. But he denies involvement in her disappearance. By the end of 1992, that same man, Jack Trawick, who would later become known as a notorious Alabama killer, is wiped from the suspects list. Another tip comes in, and it comes from an unlikely place. An inmate being held tells detectives that he has some information about the disappearance of Dr. Michele St. Romain. According to the inmate, he was with a man who had her in his trunk. He said he happened to be in the car with the man when he dumped her at a remote location, and he's willing to show detectives where it is. Perhaps this is the lead that can finally solve the case. The inmate accompanies detectives to the heavily wooded area, but he doesn't give them an exact location. This is a large area, and detectives don't find anything. The inmate gives detectives the name, and the person is brought in for questioning. However, it's obvious the man has no idea what detectives are talking about. They deduce that this person isn't involved in any way. The Alabama inmate is deemed not credible. He is just a prisoner who is trying to get out early, so he is returned to the facility. Both the inmate and the man he accused are removed from the suspects list. It's back to square one for investigators. Back in New Orleans, Michele's grieving parents try to stay positive. Her father, Woody, an oil exec at BP Corp Refinery, is hopeful his daughter is still alive. He says to consider any other possibility would be too hard to face. Weeks pass. Nightly newscasts still feature the case, and fading missing persons flyers line the streets. Still, there is no word, not a single clue. Months pass, then years. New Children's Hospital doctors come and go, and Michele St. Romain's boyfriend eventually marries someone else. Her parents continue speaking to media outlets to keep the spotlight on the case. Woody St. Romain makes sure missing persons flyers are distributed at every BP gas station throughout the Southeast. Her mother is upset that police still have not solved this case. Just 4 short years after Dr. Michele St. Romain's disappearance, her father Woody has a heart attack and passes away. Those who knew him said he most likely died of a broken heart. By 1999, the only Crime Stopper hotline calls they receive are from psychics who want to help with the investigation. It doesn't appear that Birmingham detectives take these calls seriously. The mystery caller from years earlier called back, but detectives were busy working on another case by that time. 8 years later, in a remote area, in a hollow near Edgewater, railroad workers find a fragment, and investigators know right away that this is their victim. To search, heavy excavating equipment is brought to the scene. 8 years of trash and debris and thick blackberry vines make searching the area difficult. Over the length of a football field, workers dig to exhaustion. And just before calling off the excavation, they find torn cloth consistent with doctors' hospital scrubs. A wing-shaped necklace still hangs from her column. The necklace, which held a beautiful birthstone on a gold chain, matches the one Dr. Michele St. Romain wore every day. It was a special gift from a previous boyfriend who had it made for her. This has to be her. And there's a familiar twist. This area is the same one they investigated in 1992. The inmate who directed them to the Pleasant Grove site was a 35-year-old man named Michael McNeily. 8 years ago, McNeily pointed out a general area near the wooded ravine. Detectives acted on that tip and searched the wooded area but found nothing. But since they have found her necklace, her clothes, and fragments, they need to dig more into Michael McNeely's past. And what they find is disturbing. McNeily has a history of kidnapping women. In 1990, he kidnapped a woman who escaped. That case was later reduced to assault. But McNeily didn't stop there. Detectives are now sure that he was the one who kidnapped Dr. St. Romain that next summer. And he was able to fly under the radar. He was the maintenance man at the club apartments. Months after abducting Dr. St. Romain, McNeily kidnapped another woman. This time, it was the manager of the club apartments. She also escaped. Michael McNeily received a life sentence for that kidnapping. I was told one of the women was able to escape the trunk of the car after McNeily ran out of gas. Detectives had the right man the whole time. They even had the location. Despite this, detectives keep a good attitude. They are just glad this case will finally be solved. One of the detectives told the Birmingham Post-Herald that McNeely's story back then had a slightly different flavor and different details. While detectives prepare to speak to McNeily, dental records confirm it is Dr. Michele St. Romain. The examiner says it didn't appear a struggle took place, but they couldn't immediately confirm the cause of her demise. Michael McNeily has all the answers. It's time for him to tell the truth about what happened. And investigators want a full confession, but they don't know if they're going to get it. Michael McNeily is up for parole. In the end, Michael McNeily tells all in one long, chilling confession. According to him, he abducted Michele from the parking lot of the club apartments that night. He had been watching her and had spoken to her on at least 2 occasions. One of those conversations took place at the pool. He wanted her, but she told him she had a boyfriend. She wasn't interested. Michael saw her again and asked her out, and again she turned him down. He wanted to date her, but she kept turning him down. Refusing to take no for an answer, McNeily kidnapped her instead. How he did it isn't clear. An attorney who worked on the case told me last week McNeely's details were a bit sketchy. At one point, he said he took her from the parking lot. However, it is believed he used his work access to get inside the apartment, possibly using his maintenance keys. McNeily then said he took her to another location to have his way with her. She refused. A struggle ensued, and somehow Michele broke free, just like the others. But this time, Michael McNeily couldn't let that happen again. Afterward, he rolled Michele in plastic, put her in the van, and discarded her at the location where she was found. The only motive police could come up with was he was a jilted man after she spurned his advances. Authorities charge McNeily at first with capital murder, but McNeily accepts a plea deal to save himself.